What if the future of art and anything good isn't about talent, but about who programs the algorithm? It's no longer enough to just teach AI to generate. We need to teach the humans who guide AI to understand the profound ethical weight of the creations.
One really gets me because if we're not teaching students to recognize good from bad, what are we doing?
Welcome to Adjunct Intelligence, the podcast that ensures that you remain the human in the loop in the fast world of artificial intelligence and the potential impacts on higher education. This is the second episode of June. On today's episode, ChatGPT is in your files now. We test whether Nick has any taste at all, and we're diving into the great power that AI has to bring more access to everyone. My name is Dale, AI enthusiast, and I am joined by Nick McIntosh, learning futurist. Nick, how you going?
Good, thanks, mate. Good, thanks. Coffee's kicking in and feeling good, so I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well, particularly after last week's episode of Tinfoil Hat wearing. We promise listeners it's just slightly more optimistic this week. We promise. Let's jump into the news. The Australian Financial Review this week hosted an AI conference with major employers from right across Australia. I want to dive into the speaking notes from Tim Ayres, Minister for Industry of Innovation and Science. He had talking points around Australia positioning as an AI investment hub. The government is apparently courting global AI investment, leveraging Australia's Five Eyes status. This is something I just learned about today, which is the intelligence sharing agreement we have with the United States, with the United Kingdom, with Canada and New Zealand. We're also talking about our stable governance, the fact that we're in the APAC geography, and this whole future renewable energy advantages to attract the really hungry AI data centers. Another theme was that Australia aims to be a bit of a maker rather than a taker of the AI technology. So we're seeking to shape the digital future rather than have it shaped by other countries. Framing this as kind of a national security imperative and or economic imperative as well. It's a comment that was further echoed by Commonwealth Bank CEO, which is now Australia's biggest company, who flagged a concern about being left behind if we didn't come to the table in this space. Australia's productivity growth has been, let's be honest, sluggish for a while, and they're really looking to AI to kind of give it a boost. So worker-centric AI was a phrase that was tossed around with the intention of making jobs better. Finally, we have the threat of new frameworks on the horizon, with the promise of a development of comprehensive, principles-led national AI framework with the clarity and consistency of purpose across all government departments, suggesting major policy announcements ahead. Sure, these might be ministerial talking points, but for me, it kind of gets my pulse going a little bit. We're taking this serious at a government level, and Australia's probably been a little bit asleep at the wheel at this space until now.
Speaking of government and building on Texas' response, more of a regulatory approach to AI than the hand-holding and exploratory thing they've been going through for the last few years. Melbourne is overhauling its assessment approach in response to AI and cheating services. So they're introducing new principles requiring either 50% of subject marks come from what they're terming secure assessment, so supervised, observed, or heavily monitored, or implementing programmatic assessment across entire degree programs. This is a fundamental shift from trust-based to verification-based assessment, acknowledging that the honor system, if you like, can no longer assure genuine student learning. This is a 3-year transformation. They are saying it will be faculty-led, maintaining some open assessments for learning and feedback while dramatically expanding secure options. Importantly, they're describing this as not an AI ban. They are simultaneously integrating AI literacy throughout the curriculum, suggesting a complex relationship with the technology rather than just outright rejection.
It's a fine line to walk and to balance on. I'm going to praise Melbourne for their leadership in this space, but secure assessment, let's be honest, it kind of risks turning the authentic learning into surveillance exercises. So to my colleagues, I wish you well on your 3-year journey.
100%. And yeah, going back to government for a sec, the European Commission is reportedly considering pausing enforcement of its flagship AI Act. This comes amid mounting industry backlash and implementation chaos. So this was a world first and a really comprehensive piece of AI regulation, which began taking effect February 2025, has faced criticism for being burdensome, unclear, and rushed, with key guidance documents and technical standards running months, in some cases, behind schedule. Industry pressure has intensified from both European companies and US tech giants, with the Trump administration pushing back against rules that they see as unfairly targeting American firms. So critical implementation tools like the General Purpose AI Code of Practice, reportedly due last month, have been pushed back now until Q3, so apparently August at least, leaving businesses scrambling to comply with the unclear requirements. This proposed pause would also delay enforcement until technical standards are developed, potentially expand exemptions for smaller companies, and introduce waivers for low-complexity AI systems. While some welcome the breathing room, others warn that reopening this hard-fought legislative compromise creates just further toxic uncertainty for the market.
It's a bit yuck. EU had the lead there, so to probably let it go It's interesting.
Mm.
More on the international front, I'm going to talk about the big, beautiful bill. It's a massive policy in the United States and a spending package that's being rolled out. But in it, it seeks to actually block states from regulating artificial intelligence, or AI models, for the next 10 years. Critics, including Dario Amodi from Anthropic, have described this approach as too blunt, saying it would tie the hands of legislators without establishing a coherent national strategy. AI industry leaders are calling for national transparency and collaboration rather than this much more what seems to be quite a restrictive approach. In related news, Anthropic has partnered with the NSA, providing the National Security Agency with specialized secure application, Claude for Government. There might be an echo here of what ChatGPT and OpenAI did recently. And it's aligning with the $62 billion company's mission to build reliable, interpretable, and steerable AI systems.
Really interesting to see this as a new front in the competition and the war that these different labs have actually got, like, I mean, a new vertical for these different businesses. You look at things like Stargate in terms of that, as you said, ChatGPT for government. Now Claude have waded into this as well. It's going to be interesting watching the space further diversify and going back to the war metaphor, new fronts emerge as this matures. Fascinating.
A terrifying pivot, but ChatGPT also just got smarter. It can now connect to tools like Google Drive or SharePoint to pull in live data, your search files, and personalize responses, with citations included, thankfully. It's perfect from everything from those quick tasks where you're like, what was that document that I found? And deep research. If I'm honest, the biggest request that I've had from educators when I've been speaking to these has been for something that pulls from specific learning resources. We're currently exploring a tailored learning partner that students receive before starting a course. This chat interface would introduce the course, assess your current knowledge and your learning style preferences, and then draw from an academic curated resources across different difficulty levels and content types to support your learning. It even includes a knowledge check along the way. The fact that this functionality now exists as a standard ChatGPT feature is fantastic.
This is the dream. Adaptive learning has always been an absolute fantasy for learning designers, for educators, and everything else. Meet students where they are, right? The problem is, until now, we've had very limited, rather blunt, if you like, tools that can only offer certain paths, 3 options, which fork into 3, which fork into 3, for example. That gets you a lot of the way. There are functions built into LMSs like Moodle, Canvas, and everything else that allow you to go further or forking things in different builders. But the fact that you can get granular in the same way and as detailed and as personalized that you could with something like ChatGPT or the learning assistant that you mentioned, that out of the box, absolute game changer. I love that. That's so cool.
In other news, Luma Labs has released a tool that lets you reimagine absolutely any video. In their demos, the ones that I saw at least, someone was pretending to balance on a park bench, and they clicked a button and it transformed to appear as if they're walking across a tightrope in the Grand Canyon. This technology has incredible implications for visual effects labs in movies. Additionally, 11 Labs has updated its voice model with competitive pricing, and now my social feed is completely flooded with AI voice clones reading news articles in the style of wrestling commentators or David Attenborough. This week, we want to give you a tool that will set you apart from AI, one that fundamentally can't be replicated and is uniquely human. One that you probably already have, but perhaps is a muscle to work on, or there's some considerations of how you cultivate this in a classroom. A scenario, if you please. You open your AI art generator of choice, ChatGPT, Midjourney, etc. You type in beautiful sunset and you get a technically perfect image. Gorgeous colors, flawless composition, Instagram ready, but something feels off. It's beautiful, yes, but it's also utterly forgettable. It looks like every other AI sunset you've seen. It's what researchers are starting to call AI slop. Technically proficient, but creatively hollow. Nick, jump in here. How much AI slop has been in your feed lately?
It just stacks. It's just overwhelming, actually. Like, I've been seeing heaps of this, the homogenized, mass-produced crap, frankly. And the more that AI trains on AI generated content, the more generic it all seems to get, right? So Leon Furs of Deakin, he describes it as digital plastic, and I think he's bang on point there. Exemplars, the one that's really been clogging up my feed the last week or so. I don't know if you've seen some of the biblical or historical influences, so like Jonah and the whale, Joseph bragging about his drip, right? David about to go yeet to Goliath. I mean, funny ideas, but then building on that whole giblification thing that we had a few weeks, a month or so back, there for seconds now gone. As you say, technically proficient, but just creatively hollow.
It's really interesting how much I scroll past them. Like, I'm interested by the concept, but I actually don't want to engage with them. And I think this is actually the paradox we're living through right now. AI can actually create more content in a day that humans have produced in centuries, but we're drowning in a sea of algorithmic averages. And that's where an ancient human faculty becomes our most modern superpower. I'm talking about taste. No, this is not a deep dive on your tongue, but taste as in the intellectual judgment of objects' aesthetic merit. our inbuilt quality rater. This doesn't apply to just images and photos and videos, but code, writing, and any human output, and the very human ability to fundamentally go, hey, this is really good, or this is not so good. Nick, what is your interpretation of taste?
No, mate, all my taste is in my mouth. But look, if forced to answer, I'd probably go, do you remember the book, or have you read the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance?
I've heard about it. It's one of those coffee table books that people have but probably don't ever read.
Yeah, brag
Yeah?
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went through a period like backpacking and everything else. It's a great book. It's a really good book. It's worth a look.
I also have Rick Rubin on my shelf behind me.
There you go. Just point it out. But in it, Robert Pirsig, the author, he talks about this idea called quality, right? And it's a recognition of both underlying structure, technique, with a feeling of, quote, rightness. Okay. And so if you think photography, combination of golden ratios of lighting, of subject background tension to the technical details with an underlying more human story. So here I'm thinking of that classic photo of Muhammad Ali standing over Sonny Liston. Great photo for a wide range of reasons, both technical and more. And taste, by this metric, kind of reflects that judgment of rightness, that sense of quality for you, I'd say, as an individual. And everyone's a bit different, I'd say. That would be my understanding. What's yours?
I don't know. So I went to the philosophers. So taste in its deepest sense is what philosophers have actually grappled with for centuries. Kant called it a disinterested pleasure that somehow claims universal validity, which made some sense to me, and I kind of had to pick it apart a bit. So it's kind of like when you say art is beautiful, you're not just expressing personal preference, you're making a judgment. You believe others should share that judgment. It's subjective, yet it reaches for something universal. In short, personal but contagious. More recently, thinkers have shown us that taste is embodied, cultivated, and culturally informed. It's the result of training, experience, and reflection. It's not just what you like, it's your ability to actually discern quality, meaning, and the significance across all forms of human expression. Nick, I want to do a quick test here on whether you have any taste. You've kind of already said a little bit around where you're at. I'm not going to get you to do a code review, but I do have a jingle.
Show us your taste, give it a try. Vibe with the beats or let it conspire.
Enough of that. I'm going to give you, Nick, there's one piece of artwork here that I've literally walked past in an art gallery and I've been so moved by that the photo you're seeing is actually one I took on my iPhone and I tried to frame it up so nicely. So it's so beautiful. And then the other piece of artwork is what ChatGPT thinks this artwork is. I got it to interpret this artwork and then regurgitate it back into Midjourney. I want you to tell me which one you prefer.
Which one I prefer? It's such
Which
a
one you
loaded.
prefer?
Yeah. So the left one has this sort of Michael Bay feel, right? Like, I mean, in terms of like saturation and everything dialed up to 11, in terms of the blues, the yellows, and everything else. And so in that mood, I'm going to prefer that. I want to see that in a movie. I can see a more tasteful sort of rendition on the other. Like, look at me on my fence. Look at me on my fence right here, comfortably perched. I'm going to go for the one on the left.
Do you prefer the one on the left?
I
Interesting.
didn't. No. Hang on.
That would be we've locked it in, listeners. That would be the AI generated version. It maybe just suggests that AI is getting better, maybe perhaps. But the artwork I've referred to is John Martin's The Destruction of Pompeii, painted in 1821 and 22. It's a beautiful piece. I don't think I'm going to show it anywhere. I'll link it to a photo of it, so there's no copyright claims.
Can I circle back to that? Like, I mean, I think there's a viscerality to that experience. I'd be interested. How big was the picture? That as well, out of genuine interest.
You're right. It's an enormous mural. Like it is like the biggest ever plasma TV that you've ever seen. Like
I'm trying to reel my way out of this, but again, that Michael Bay thing. It might be worth giving a shout out as well. 2022 Colorado State Fair. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of this, but Theatre de Opera Speciale. Kicked off, there was a Midjourney generated image that won a state level competition for this composition, a wee bit in the sort of June or space opera, as the title would suggest, sense. And caused an absolute uproar when it was revealed that it was actually made by an AI. So
I'll argue, early stage Midjourney was artistic. But Nick, so your eyes are no good, but let's test your ear.
Yeah.
I'm going to play 20 seconds of two songs. One that will be what some consider a masterpiece, and this is the royalty-free version of that masterpiece. And one that is what happens when I feed in the words, please make me a masterpiece, into the AI song generation platform, Udio. I'm not going to tell you which one's first. Now again, we're looking here for what you think you prefer and has taste and is fundamentally good. So I'm going to play you the other song now.
Check it out, we're breaking ground. Knowledge flying high, never coming down. AI
So, Nick, which one is better?
I mean, I appreciate the underarm through. I have a bit more hopefully taste in the music realm, but I'm going to go for the first. I think.
So the Moonlight Sonata from Beethoven, I believe, and a rendition there from our stock library there. And the other one was an AI version of a song through Udio. So good. Your ears work, but your eyes
I'll take
perhaps
it.
not.
Classes on the way.
So for me, I think taste will be the last thing to go in this kind of AI takes all phenomenon that we're seeing. But when I think about it, I've actually never been more engaged when I'm creating with these tools. When I'm dipping into Midjourney to prototype an idea, pulling up 11 Labs to hear what something sounds like when it's kind of read back at me, getting Claude to code me a game that tests out a new kind of gaming concept I want to explore. It's a lot more than just kind of one shooting a prompt to press your button and getting art. Researchers have coined a phrase here called a generative synthesia, and I think it's actually truly incredible what we're actually creating with these tools. Let's jump into industry for a little bit and see what's happening. Gucci. They make things. Very people who know the name Gucci, I'm thinking bags and clothes. Revered by many as a fashion company with taste. They train models on their entire design archive and then they let AI generate thousands of variations. Here's the key. Human designers with cultivated taste still made every crucial decision. They prompt AI, they curate the outputs, and they refine the results. The AI provides the raw material. Human taste provides the vision, the meaning, and to get poetic for a second, the soul. Non-fashion angle, let's look at GitHub. There's a senior dev who watches Copilot spit out 15 or so functions in 3 seconds, and then he keeps one and rewrites 14. It's kind of, that's kind of the taste that we're seeing. This kind of positions humans as creative directors and curators, dipping into all that algorithmic possibility.
I want to claw back a little bit of taste on my part, like a big background in brewing beer and everything else. Ran a microbrewery for a while in China, but I'm a massive beer snob, and so in terms of my own taste, I will infrequently plan entire trips around good breweries. Maybe there's a case to be made that it shows how taste works in practice, right? So once, at least on my part, you've had proper craft ale, you can instantly spot the difference between something crafted intelligently with care, thought, and knowledge versus a mass-produced average. So looking at you, Cooper's Green, for one.
I think me and you need to organise some drinks up in Vietnam.
Sounds good.
Here's the problem. We're at the risk of facing a massive taste deficit. As AI kind of floods the world with content, we're seeing 3 dangerous trends. Homogenization. In theory, AI should be nothing but taste. But when you're trained on statistical averages and model weighting, you will always be average. It's why a bit of actual hallucination every now and then isn't so bad in our AI models, because we get some of those truly creative results. Without strong human creation, we risk a future creative output that's technically competent but aesthetically bland. Everything optimized for broad appeal. Nothing pushing boundaries. In short, this could just mean that we go back to 2012, where electronic dance music sounded very similar and David Guetta was kind of releasing the same drop every week after week. But the consequences are probably a little bit more dire. Second, we got bias amplification. AI doesn't just reflect data, it amplifies the bias inside it. It's an algorithmic echo chamber. I'm not going to dive too much into how bad echo chambers are. Not good, and we don't want more of them. Third, skills atrophy. When creation becomes effortless, we risk kind of losing the very capacities that make human taste meaningful. The hard-won knowledge, the cultivated sensitivity, the ability to push beyond the comfort and the familiar. I was listening to Simon Sinek this week, and he spoke to the struggles of creating something great and how that makes something more valuable. To put a commercial spin on this, when we're buying something we really want, driven by taste, it's not often the product we're buying. We're buying the story behind it. Nick, which one are you most concerned about?
So I would probably go skill atrophy first, right? So if students stop developing the critical thinking or the thought attributes that we're looking for at higher education and quality discernment because AI does the heavy lifting, we've broken fundamentally what universities are supposed to do. So that going back to that line we've given a couple of times, critical threat rather to the central USP of a higher education. The skill atrophy one really gets me because if we're not teaching students to recognize good from bad, what are we doing?
When we talk about taste, we often think about art, music, fashion, but for AI, it's evaluating everything that AI creates. And for machine to truly get what makes something objectively good, it needs a foundation far deeper than just data points, and that's where universities really shine. So, let's just talk for a second. What do universities do incredibly well? Deep context. So all those courses on history, on culture, on building domain knowledge. They do critique vocab incredibly well. So frameworks that move beyond to saying things like, hey, I like that piece of art, to actually why it works. So it's moving beyond kind of gut feeling to a reasoned analytical judgment. Imagine AI trained purely on users' likes without the actual deeper critical framework. It might just optimize popularity, but not for true merit or innovation. And universities are really good at teaching these words and these languages for people to have shared understanding of what makes things good and bias busting ethics. You mentioned already that universities always have these frameworks kind of baked in, these challenging dominant narratives, turning up the volume on those marginalized voices and grappling with authorship, attribution, deepfake dilemmas, all the things we've spoken about recently. This is really important for our Indigenous voices in an ever more Western culture. So, what if the future of art and anything good isn't about talent, but about who programs the algorithm? This really isn't for me about protecting human creativity. I'm not naive to think that in this capitalist society that mass-produced cheap content will win out and some overly human loyalty is needed. But for what's elevated and what's good and what has taste, keep the work human. We're not talking about whether the future of art, code, music, anything will be good or bad. We're talking about whether human culture will be shaped by thoughtful, diverse, ethically informed taste or by algorithmic averaging of existing biases. The companies building AI systems understand this. The companies who are becoming AI first understand this and are desperately seeking people with cultivated taste to guide their models and design the work output to maintain a point of difference. So there's a deep imperative for our educational institutions to prioritize taste development. Taste is your only defense in a world where AI can create pretty much anything.
That's a wild conversation, man. Like, I mean, in terms of what will dictate the direction of the future of learning, the future of art itself. Like, I mean, music is more my bag than visual arts and everything else. But it's a great call to arms.
Taste is this brilliant human compass in this less than human algorithmic age, but compasses need calibration. They need to be sensitive, accurate, and ethically oriented. Well, this one anyway. For me, that's the work of education. Primary, secondary, tertiary, and lifelong. It's not just about knowledge, but building the human faculties that no algorithm can replicate. Education, and more importantly, universities, have always been in the business of developing that capacity. Now, it's never been more important that they succeed.
After last week's deepfake doom and gloom, I wanted to come in this week with a deep dive that will hopefully start to restore your faith in technology. So, bit of personal background. Before I got into more of the tech side, I was a teacher, learning designer, working with students with a wide range of diverse learning needs. And I remember a number of years back, I had a really formative moment of understanding what dyslexia is really like. I was shown this website running a script that made the letters on the page jump around in real time, sort of shifting, restless, just impossible to follow. It was exhausting trying to decipher even a single sentence. And this was a really powerful example that stuck with me. Much more recently, just in the last year or so, actually, I had another wake up call. I actually tried using a screen reader myself. So, these the software that reads websites aloud for people who are blind, who have low vision. And honestly, it was not remotely what I thought it was. I'd always put faith in things like the WCAG compliance, making for good user experiences. And look, it's definitely better than nothing, but wow, right? It turns out that traditional assistive tech is way more limited than I'd realized. Students are essentially confined to whatever care, insight, time, bluntly, the people setting up those experiences actually had. So, and let's be honest, might often not be much. I mean, Dale, quick question. Dale, have you had any moments like that where you realized accessibility barriers were way worse than you'd thought?
Like, I'll bring up my background, Nick, as well, in terms of content creation for learning and multimedia devices. I think the list of things to make things WCAG compliant is so long. And it gives you a real eye-opening into the things you need to be able to do to make these things more accessible. But it always, when you do it, it still does feel like box ticking. And I think the conversation always goes to, what's the minimum we could do to be able to make this appropriate and compliant for those standards?
100% sad but true, which is why what's happening with AI right now is just so incredible, right? And so while everyone is panicking about academic integrity, about cheating, there is this quiet revolution happening that I think a lot of us are just completely missing. So here's what I've tried the last couple months, right? The criminally underused Google AI Studio has the screen sharing feature where you get Gemini 2.0 basically in your ear while you browse the internet. So I decided to try it out playing GeoGuessr. So, those random Google Maps Street View locations we have to guess where you are. So I'm looking at some random street corner. Gemini's in my ear. Like I can see Cyrillic script on that shop sign. The architecture looks Eastern European. Those license plates suggest this might be somewhere in the Balkans. It was like having the world's most knowledgeable travel companion right there with me. So case in point, right? Take a low vision engineering student who for years couldn't access circuit diagrams or at least had great difficulty in terms of doing that. Traditional screen readers with poor alt text would just say image and then be bounded by whatever the LD, the learning designer, or busy academic had input as that alt text. That's it. Now, she uploads the diagram to AI and gets something like, look, this is a 3-stage amplifier circuit, feedback loops, the input signal enters through R1, gets amplified by. So this student is now not just accessing the content, she is understanding relationships that were potentially inaccessible or at best challenging to access before. Or video calls, right? So we've all seen the basic auto captions, but emerging forms of AI captioning is capturing nuance. So speaker jokes, right? Noticing when the room laughs, picking up on sarcasm, on slang, all those key bits of social context. This isn't just transcription anymore. I would suggest this is social participation. So you have deaf and hard of hearing students are finally a part of the conversation and not just reading along. A recent EY study found that 91% of disabled and neurodivergent employees see AI as valuable assistive tech. 88% report being more productive. And these aren't future promises. This isn't future tech. This is happening right now in real workplaces, in real classrooms. Pivoting now to universities, like I would argue that there's an institutional irony here, right? That unis spend millions on accessibility compliance. They have entire departments dedicated to it. Then, with AI, a great number of them have turned around and banned one of the most transformative accessibility tools ever created because they're worried about academic integrity. There's a case to be made that this is like installing wheelchair ramps while banning wheelchairs. Dale, how are you seeing institutions handle this tension between AI policies and accessibility needs?
I don't actually have any good examples, but the conversation needs to be deeper than we're banning AI because of X. And this is where the proper engagement and the reactionary kind of things needs to happen, and that have happened cause bad examples.
According to that Ernst & Young study, 53% of Gen Z identifies as neurodivergent. So we are talking about, we were literally teaching the most neurodivergent generation in history, right as we're banning the tools that could help them thrive. And then flipping it, there's that skills gap that no one's talking about, where companies are desperately seeking people who can collaborate effectively with AI. And then guess who's already expert at exactly these tools? So students who've been using AI for accessibility. While we're debating whether AI use constitutes cheating, the workplace is racing towards AI integration. And the other side, the beautiful thing about designing for accessibility, you accidentally make things better for everyone.
I have a real design love, and my comment for this has always been, if you design for the outliers, sure, it might be more expensive, but the experience it gives to everyone in between those outliers is lifting.
1,000,000%. Rising tide. Like there's so much to be gained here. So here's what I want people to do this week, if I can ask, right? Our listeners. Go to Google AI's Studio screen sharing feature. Spend 10 minutes playing GeoGuessr with Gemini 2.0 in your ear. Then go online shopping with it. Try it out. See what you think. Because this thing it's amazing. But then let's go a bit deeper, right? Try something with a bit more nuance. So for example, I mean, again, my lapsed my taste defense was I'm more music than visual arts. I'm a lapsed guitarist. I've never been amazing, but I was good enough. Like I definitely spent a lot of time noodling and playing over the years.
How are you with Wonderwall?
Mate, anything with 4 chords, easy. No worries. I'll get along next time. I'm going to get on Udio and play you a rendition. The other day, Gemini, we got stuck into Little Wing by Jimi Hendrix, and we started nerding out about the E minor pentatonic runs, about the phrasing, the grace notes, the genius that was Jimi Hendrix wrote into one of just the most amazing songs ever written. So Gemini was great. It was explaining how the grace notes added that sort of Hendrix feel, why he might have chosen particular bends at particular points in the song, essentially how the scale works in that context. It was like having a music professor, guitar teacher in one, so breaking down techniques with just infinite patience. Now, imagine what that means for a student who's been locked out of visual learning materials. We're not talking accommodating. We're talking genuine intellectual partnership with content that was previously largely, if not completely inaccessible. This isn't assistive technology as an add-on. This is AI that's inherently accessible. The students are already showing us what's possible when we remove barriers instead of maintaining them. Dale, before I send everyone off to play with Gemini and guitar tabs, what's your take on where this is all heading?
This is the brilliant thing about the age of abundance, where everyone gets everything, and there's endless examples for people to dip into, and this is where optimism comes from. This is why we usually trend for optimism in this space, because it is good and it should be heading somewhere really positive for a lot of people.
I mean, I guess the question is, are we going to be part of this, driving this change, or just watch it happen from the sidelines while we debate policies?
Well, listeners, thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please leave us a review, share it within your network, and most of all, hit subscribe or follow whatever platform you are on. For those watching on YouTube, we are on all the podcast platforms, and for those who would like to see our faces, you can find us on YouTube too. We would love to tell you what's on next week's episode, but it's a world that moves way too fast, so just have to tune in. Until then, stay curious, stay intelligent, and stay the human in the loop.